The 10 worst American tractors ever made, focusing on those vintage machines from the 1900s that turned farm days into full-on nightmares. Get ready to relive those classic breakdowns and hear the stories of farmers who just couldn't catch a break. From disappointing engines to catastrophic design flaws, these tractors had it all, except reliability. Subscribe to Vintage Harvester for more tractor tales and farm history. Number 10. Ford 8N. Let's start with the Ford 8N, 1947's promising piece of machinery. Initially hyped up as the successor to the iconic 2N and 9N, the Ford 8N was supposed to revolutionize farming. With a 4-speed transmission, about 23 horsepower, and that game-changing 3-point hitch system, it sounded like a dream. But for many, it was a nightmare on wheels. For starters, those rear tires, not the best choice for working in anything other than the driest soil. Farmers everywhere found themselves stuck in the mud or unable to work the fields properly. The real kicker? Overheating. The simple L-head engine was supposed to be low maintenance, but owners soon learned it couldn't take the heat. Literally, with a radiator that clogs faster than a bad plumbing job and a cooling system that needed constant babysitting, the 8N was more about fixing than farming. Plus, that front-mounted distributor, it loved letting water in during rainy days, completely messing with the ignition system. The Ford 8N promised greatness, but left farmers cursing in the fields instead. Number 9. Allis-Chalmers WC. Next up, we have the Allis-Chalmers WC. Introduced in the 1930s, this tractor boasted a compact design and a 2011 cubic inch engine, putting out 22 horsepower. It seemed like a solid pick, especially for those trying to upgrade from the old pull-behind plows. But soon enough, its flaws began to show. The narrow front end made it downright dangerous on uneven terrain. If you weren't paying attention, the thing would tip over faster than a toddler in a bounce house. Then there's the infamous magneto ignition system. While it wasn't uncommon at the time, the WC system required constant tinkering. On dusty days, it was more of a misfire than a workhorse, turning a peaceful plowing session into a frustrating mess. And if you wanted the luxury of electric start, prepare to shell out more cash than most could afford back in the day. Parts weren't always available, and even minor issues like a cracked manifold could put you out of commission for weeks. The WC might have been ahead of its time in theory, but in practice, it was a headache at best. Number 8. John Deere 5055E. You'd think that a John Deere tractor would be a safe bet, right? Wrong. Enter the John Deere 5055E, a 21st century dud. Packed with a 2.9-liter PowerTech engine generating 55 horsepower, it should have been perfect for small to medium-sized farms. But the stories of electrical gremlins made every day a gamble. Fuel gauges gave false readings. Dash lights flickered like a haunted house on Halloween. And, worst of all, it refused to start without explanation. Imagine being stuck in the field, just waiting for your tractor to decide if it wanted to work that day or not. And don't even get started on its power when handling heavier implements. The 5055E was as underpowered as they come, struggling to keep up with the demands of larger farming tasks. The hitch lift capacity might have been advertised as a game changer, but on the field, it couldn't hold up without adding front-end ballast. For those who trusted the Deere name, the 5055E was a massive letdown. Number 7. Belarus 510. We're talking about the Belarus 510, a tractor that wasn't even made in America, but made its way to the US soil in the 1900s. It looked like a great deal with its 50 horsepower, Soviet-era simplicity, and cheap price tag. But once it hit the fields, things quickly went downhill. Getting parts was like hunting for a needle in a haystack. And good luck figuring out the cryptic manuals that seemed to be written in a language all their own. Shifting gears on the Belarus 510 required serious muscle. And let's not forget those fussy clutch adjustments. The hydraulics leaked at the worst possible times, making every repair feel like a part-time job. Plus, the tractor's aesthetics? Not exactly a head-turner. The cab was loud and uncomfortable, and the vibrations transferred right to the operator. While some owners still defend its rugged simplicity, the consensus is clear. The Belarus 510 caused way more stress than it was worth. Number 6. International Harvester 656. The International Harvester 656 should have been a standout, but unfortunately, it fell flat. Powered by a 263 cubic inch gas engine or a 282 cubic inch diesel engine, the 656 promised versatility with its 60 horsepower. But, as farmers soon found out, the torque amplifier system that was supposed to provide smooth shifting on the go was a total bust. When the TA worked, it was great. When it didn't, well, you had no middle ground, making uphill tasks a slow, agonizing grind. Maintenance wasn't a walk in the park either. The engine compartment was tight, making basic tasks like changing filters feel like a contortionist's challenge. And those oil leaks? The rear main seal was notorious for them, and if you didn't catch it in time, friction problems in the clutch could leave you with a real mess on your hands. Overheating was another common issue, with radiators collecting debris faster than a magnet. If you thought the International Harvester brand was all about durability, the 656 quickly made you rethink that. Number 5. Oliver 1755. The Oliver 1755 hit the market in the late 1960s with a promise of power and reliability, boasting 80 horsepower and a robust design, but it didn't take long for its flaws to surface. The engine had a bad habit of developing crankshaft and bearing issues, often prematurely. A well-maintained 1755 might run smoothly for a while, but once those bearings started to wear, it was an expensive repair bill in the making. And let's talk about the hydraulic system. Despite being marketed as modern and efficient, it had frequent leaks and relief valve failures that could leave you stranded at the worst times. The steering also had a tendency to lock up or stiffen, which was especially scary when you were driving downhill with a load behind you. In the end, the Oliver 1755 didn't live up to its hype, leaving many farmers with nothing but regret. Number 4. JCB Fast Track 2155. The JCB Fast Track 2155 is a tractor that looked great on paper, but left many farmers wishing they'd looked elsewhere. Known for its sleek design and impressive road speeds, it was powered by a 6-cylinder Perkins engine, putting out 150 horsepower. But once it hit the fields, the issues piled up. The complicated suspension system, which was a dream on smooth roads, quickly became a nightmare in the field. Oil leaks in the suspension cylinders were a constant issue, and parts were anything but easy to find. The weight distribution also made it front-heavy, which meant that taking it off-road, especially on hilly terrain, could leave you feeling like you were driving a runaway train. And then, there were the electronics. With all the advanced features, it was more like a tech-heavy disaster waiting to happen. Error codes, mechanical headaches, and no local expert to fix it? The Fast Track 2155 was a prime example of a tractor that looked cooler than it worked. Number 3. Farmall M.
Yeah, park it over here.
The Farmall M, a true icon of the 1940s and 50s, often romanticized as the tractor that built America. With a 264 cubic inch engine and 34 horsepower, it was a staple on many farms. But as nostalgic as it is, the Farmall M was a handful. The steering was mechanical and could turn your forearms into Popeyes in no time. It wasn't exactly nimble when it came to tight turns or smaller fields either. Fuel consumption was another issue. While many tractors were thirsty, the M seemed to have a personal vendetta against fuel efficiency. If you were plowing for hours, you'd better have a backup fuel supply, or you'd be left stranded. Starting it up on cold mornings? A real battle of willpower, with constant adjustments and cranking, until you could finally get it to fire up. Brakes were another sore spot, with manual adjustments that could be easily thrown off. The Farmall M might have been iconic, but it also required more effort than most farmers cared to give. Number 2. Minneapolis Moline G13555. The Minneapolis Moline G13555 entered the 1970s with all the right specs. A 585 cubic inch engine, pumping out 135 PTO horsepower. But what looked like a beast on paper quickly turned into a problem child in practice. The engine was prone to overheating, especially if the cooling system wasn't perfectly maintained. And when the heads cracked, you were looking at a repair bill that could break the bank. The transmission wasn't much better. The delicate power shift system required just the right touch, and if you didn't shift properly, you could fry the components. Long hours on the G1355 weren't exactly comfortable either, with its vibrating operator platform and steering that sometimes lacked assist. The G1355 became known for its constant breakdowns, leaving many farmers wishing they had picked something else. Number 1. White 2105. And here it is. The White 2105. The tractor that was supposed to combine the best features of Oliver and Minneapolis Moline, but ended up combining the worst features instead. Powered by a 354 cubic inch Perkins diesel engine with 105 PTO horsepower, it sounded promising. But when it came to the transmission, it was a nightmare. Frequent shifting led to excessive wear, and before long, owners found themselves facing expensive rebuilds. The hydraulic system, leaks everywhere, and the pump capacity often couldn't keep up with demanding tasks. The cab, while more enclosed than older designs, did nothing to dampen the engine's loud whining or vibrations. Farmers soon found themselves regretting their purchase, realizing that this tractor was more trouble than it was worth. The White 2105 earned its spot at the top of this list, not for innovation, but for being a mechanical disaster. And there you have it, the 10 worst American utility tractors in history. These machines were supposed to make life easier, but they turned out to be more trouble than they were worth. Have you ever had the misfortune of dealing with one of these? Drop a comment below and let us know your worst tractor story. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to subscribe to Vintage Harvester for more tractor tales, farm history, and equipment breakdowns. Remember, sometimes the best lesson is learning what not to buy.